Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Asurado. This movie tells the story of a respected inmate who can calm the prison conditions with his presence. But when a new warden appears and messes things up and also harass his wife, he has to get up and face it all. Can he save his wife and restore peace in prison? Let's find out in Asurado. Asurado begins with the story in a prison, where Doksa and Dae-ho, the leader of two mafia gangs, are being held. Fights are inevitable every day, to the point that the guards use water cannons to break up the fight. The situation made the chief warden have to think about how to create peace in the prison, because he is currently undergoing a promotion review. Head of Security Division, Mr. Lee, said that he would try to persuade Doksa and Dae-ho to reconcile. Doksa himself is now taking a bath, and behind him, the other inmates are waiting in line. At the front of the queue, Dae-ho plans to kill Doksa right away. Unfortunately, Dae-ho's plan was stopped because he was caught by one of the guards assigned by Mr. Lee. The next day, the chief warden tells Mr. Lee that he must prepare for the arrival of a new convict, the most feared mob boss in Korea. The chief warden predicts that things are likely to get even more chaotic. However, Mr. Lee argues otherwise. If there was someone stronger than Doksa and Dae-ho, only one leader would dominate, and the commotion that had been going on for so long would have resolved itself. One afternoon, when the inmates are gathered in the field, Doksa challenges Dae-ho to a fight. Doksa knows that Dae-ho wants to kill him in a cowardly way. Dae-ho accepts the challenge and they walk to the corner of the field where the inmates often fight. The battle between the two mafia gangs ensued. The battle begins with their subordinates fighting each other one-on-one. Meanwhile, the guards looked happy because they got entertainment by watching the inmates fight. After the men from each side fought, it was their gang leader's turn to fight one-on-one. Doksa and Dae-ho have equal fighting abilities, so their fight takes a long time. Eventually, their men join the fight to defend their leader, causing the guards to intervene in the fight. As a result of the fight, Doksa and Dae-ho are summoned by Mr. Lee to his office, where Mr. Lee tries to persuade them to make peace. However, their feud was so hard to reconcile that they were reluctant to accept Mr. Lee's suggestion. The next day, Lee Tae-sik, the prisoner whom the warden was worried about, arrived at the prison. Accompanied by two guards, Tae-sik passes through the field where the inmates are gathered. The inmates look scared and amazed to see Tae-sik because they already know him. However, Doksa suddenly taunts Tae-sik. In response, Tae-sik asks the guard who escorted him for permission to teach Doksa a lesson. Doksa fainted after being kicked once. In the afternoon, Tae-sik, who is being held alone in a special cell, is met by the chief warden and Mr. Lee. The warden asks Tae-sik to help him control Doksa and Dae-ho, who always cause trouble in the prison. If Tae-sik manages to reconcile the two of them, the warden will try to help him while Tae-sik is in prison. After the meeting, the warden even gave Tae-sik a fruit basket. In the prison cell, Doksa's men tried to wake Doksa, who was still unconscious. While in another cell, Dae-ho is sitting with his men while telling about Tae-sik, who is a legend among the Korean mafia. Tae-sik used to only work as a security guard, until one day he accidentally encountered a group of mafia in order to protect a woman. The incident made him have to fight against 100 mafia. Amazingly, Tae-sik was able to defeat the 100 people alone. Since then, Tae-sik's popularity skyrocketed, until he became the #1 mafia in Korea. The next afternoon, Tae-sik, who was sitting alone in the field, was met by the inmates who saluted him, including Doksa and Dae-ho. Then, Tae-sik calls Doksa and Dae-ho so they can reconcile. Unexpectedly, Dae-ho reached out his hand to Doksa, indicating that he wanted to make peace. Doksa takes Dae-ho's hand and they apologize to each other. The warden, who was watching them from inside his office, looked pleased. Finally, he can work with relief. The routine of the inmates seems to have changed. Now they work together to help each other. They even seem to get along when they gather in the field. Tae-sik has also been made as a regular prisoner. He then transferred to Dae-ho's cell. Some time has passed. The chief warden will be transferred because he gets a promotion. In fact, the prison he leads is used as a model prison. So to celebrate the award, and also for the farewell of the chief warden, an entertainment event was held by bringing a musical group into the prison. A few days later, Jo Pyong-ho, the new chief warden, arrives. Mr. Lee explains about the prison's profile, including the peace and quiet that has surrounded it since Tae-sik's arrival. Therefore, the prison guards are very dependent on Tae-sik to maintain the peace. Hearing that a prison is dependent on a mafia, Pyong-ho is so angry that he hits Mr. Lee's ass with a golf club. Since then, Mr. Lee has inspected the inmates with a tense expression on his face. One afternoon, Mr. Lee made an inspection by calling all the inmates together. However, one prisoner was seen lazing around, making Mr. Lee furious that he hit him repeatedly. Other inmates who saw Mr. Lee's changes were silent. Tae-sik also suggests that Doksa and Dae-ho come to work as ordered by Mr. Lee. When the inmates were working outside the cell to clean the prison area, Pyong-ho was escorted by several prison guards to inspect the inmates' belongings. Surprisingly, the guards found a lot of cigarettes, knives, and even drugs. After that, prison regulations began to tighten. Prisoners are only allowed to take a bath with a duration of 30 seconds. As a result, the inmates shower in a hurry. Even their food rations seemed inadequate and reduced. As Pyong-ho walks around and stands in front of Tae-sik's cell, Tae-sik is reminded of the incident that got him in prison. At that time, several young men were partying at a karaoke venue accompanied by the girls provided by the venue. However, one of the youths mixed the drink with illegal drugs. Then he asked Ho-ran, the girl who accompanied him, to drink it. Ho-ran refused, and it made the young man hit her with a drink bottle. Seeing the commotion going on, the pimp entered the room and called the guards. Tae-sik, who is the owner of the karaoke place, also entered the room and tried to calm the drunken young man. But the young man instead took the broken bottle and threatened Tae-sik. Unfortunately, the young man could not control himself. He slipped, and the broken bottle killed him. After the incident, Tae-sik marries Ho-ran. However, despite his innocence, Tae-sik was sentenced to 5 years in prison. The young man turned out to be the son of Pyong-ho. Because of his grudge, Pyong-ho has planned to be transferred to the prison where Tae-sik is being held. Besides wanting to torture Tae-sik, he also intends to slander Tae-sik so that his sentence is added to a life sentence. After that, Pyong-ho asked 2 guards to tie up Tae-sik and beat him. The torture of Tae-sik begins. Mr. Lee seems pressured to work with Pyong-ho, but since he has no other choice, he can only do what Pyong-ho wants. Then, unexpectedly, Pyong-ho asked Doksa and Dae-ho to be returned to their cells. He also asked Mr. Lee to keep Doksa and Dae-ho at odds like before just so that Pyong-ho could feel the real prison aura. One of the inmates was even brought to Mr. Lee's room and beaten to a pulp, so that the inmate could make a false report that the drug supplier in the prison was Tae-sik. One day, Ho-ran visited the prison. Mr. Lee took Ho-ran to Pyong-ho's room. There, Pyong-ho tells that Tae-sik is an exemplary prisoner, so Ho-ran has the privilege of meeting her husband in the chief warden's room. Ho-ran, who doesn't know Pyong-ho, immediately believes. She drank the coffee Pyong-ho made, which had been mixed with sleeping pills. Not long after, Ho-ran fell asleep. Pyong-ho immediately took a photo of Ho-ran's body. After that, Tae-sik was taken to Pyong-ho's room accompanied by several guards. Tae-sik is furious when he sees his wife being harassed by Pyong-ho. However, Tae-sik can't do anything because his hands and feet are handcuffed. Tae-sik faints from being hit by Mr. Lee. A few days later, Pyong-ho calls Doksa to his room. Doksa is offered by Pyong-ho to be released on parole, as long as he is willing to take Ho-ran hostage and arrest Tae-sik if he dares to escape from the prison. Doksa agreed to the offer because he missed his mother, who was currently very ill and needed treatment. The next day, with the help of his fellow inmates, Tae-sik lures the guard into his special cell, where he attacks him until he passes out. Then, disguised in a warden's uniform, Tae-sik walks out of his cell. While in the field, Tae-sik asks Dae-ho and his men to gather. Tae-sik asks them to help him finish off Pyong-ho. But Dae-ho's men don't agree with Tae-sik's plan because they suspect that something is wrong, especially when they find out suddenly that Doksa has been released on parole by Pyong-ho. Hearing that, Tae-sik realized that Ho-ran was in danger. Tae-sik finally asks Dae-ho and his men to make a fuss so he can escape from prison. A commotion ensues, and Tae-sik can easily walk towards the exit. When Tae-sik opens the prison door, Mr. Lee sees it, but he lets it go. He actually looks happy to see Tae-sik manage to escape from prison. Then Mr. Lee reports Tae-sik's escape to Pyong-ho. Unexpectedly, Pyong-ho looked calm because he had predicted this would happen. He then asked Mr. Lee to prepare himself, because in 2 hours, the Minister of Law will come to visit the prison. Mr. Lee immediately inspected the prisoners as well as the guards, and asked them to act as if nothing had happened. Outside the prison, Tae-sik is looking for Ho-ran's whereabouts, until in an empty street, he meets some of Doksa's men. Tae-sik can knock them all out quickly. Tae-sik finally finds Ho-ran, who is being held by Doksa. Doksa mobilizes his best fighters to fight Tae-sik, but in the end, all of them can be defeated by Tae-sik. Seeing Tae-sik off guard, Doksa pulled out a knife from under his shirt and stabbed Tae-sik. Tae-sik beats Doksa before taking Ho-ran away. They then hide in an empty house. Tae-sik asks Ho-ran to report his escape from prison so that they both can survive the pursuit of Doksa and his men. Then, they separated. Tae-sik chases after Doksa, while Ho-ran runs to the police station. Tae-sik and Doksa fight again. Doksa uses a knife to attack Tae-sik. However, with all his might, Tae-sik tries to fend off Doksa's attack, even though he has been badly injured from a stab wound. In the end, They both fell because of injuries. Here, Doksa admits that he has been used by Pyong-ho, but he intends to destroy Pyong-ho's career and expose Pyong-ho's rottenness while leaving prison. He took his cell phone from his pocket and called his reporter friend. Then, Doksa gives his cell phone to Tae-sik. He wants Tae-sik to explain what really happened in the prison. Back to the prison, where the Minister of Law is seen being entertained by Pyong-ho in his office. But their conversation was interrupted because reporters barged in. They ask about Tae-sik's escape and ask for confirmation of the alleged evidence and false witnesses made by Pyong-ho to incriminate Tae-sik's sentence. Pyong-ho, clearly unprepared for the bombardment of these questions, then orders Mr. Lee to kick the reporters out, but the minister had already heard them. He then asked his subordinates to check the prison CCTV camera footage and Pyong-ho's cell phone. When he saw the photo of Ho-ran's harassment, the minister immediately ordered the arrest of Pyong-ho. Meanwhile, outside the prison, Doksa and Tae-sik hobbled until they finally fell. The guards came to help and took them both into the prison. At the end of the film, the prison atmosphere is calm again as before. Doksa and Dae-ho get back together, and Tae-sik is seen leading the inmates in the prison. Even Mr. Lee has also been promoted and became the new chief warden of the prison. The film ends. The lesson that can be learned from this film is, if peace makes our lives calm, why should we create hostility that will actually complicate our lives?